I am going to give you a little bit of information about walk-in souls. I just want to say that anybody live streaming on YouTube, please be sure to put any questions or comments that you have in the chat. And as well, for people watching on the webinar here, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And the last 30 minutes of the presentation are going to be for questions and answers so we can find out some more information. So the concept of a walk-in soul refers to a spiritual concept where a new soul takes over the body of a person who may have experienced a significant life event or undergone a deep spiritual transformation. Some people who are near-death experiencers explain this as part of their process as well. It's usually described as a voluntary agreement between the original soul and a new incoming soul. And so the old soul, the original soul, will depart and the new soul will walk in and take its place. Some people believe that walk-in souls occur as part of a soul contract or an agreement that's made before birth, while others view it as a spontaneous occurrence that results as a soul's desire to experience a particular life path or fulfill a specific purpose. Some individuals believe that highly evolved spiritual beings, such as ascended masters or spiritual guides, may choose to enter human bodies as a walk-in soul to impart wisdom or guidance and healing to humanity. So these would be our greatest spiritual teachers. And while talking to the panel, we discussed that the opposite of this, some people would consider to be demonic possession. So a walk-in soul from a higher aspect would be what we're going to talk about today, where some people would consider this, the opposite would be a demonic possession from like a lower entity coming and walking into a body. Another walk-in concept that we're going to hear about today is the concept of a soul braid. And a soul braid is when two or more souls are closely connected, almost like they're woven together, and they might share one body and work together to navigate life, learn, and grow spiritually. This can also be linked to the concept of twin flames, which is sometimes one soul in two bodies, but this is also another concept of that as well. When I asked the panel about the purpose of the walk-in soul, the conversation opened up to the idea that walk-ins are present during times of significant global change or transition, that their presence can be seen as part of a larger spiritual awakening or a shift in consciousness that's occurring at a collective level. And so they're here for spiritual evolution and spiritual assistance on a soul level. And the conversation also came up about the fact that it would take too much time to be born over. So the soul came in and swapped out because this is the most exciting time to be here because we are in the midst of transformation. So, okay, that's all of the information. I really had a super fun time talking to our panelists and gathering information and learning about this concept. This is a concept that really assisted me in my own spiritual journey as well. So I'm going to introduce our first presenter, and that's Danielle Sherrill. And Danielle is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. She encountered a near-death experience at the age of 15 in a car accident where she underwent this walk-in soul phenomenon. However, it wasn't until the full solar eclipse of 2017 that the dormant essence within her became activated, flooding her with ancient memories and unlocking a profound remembrance of her true self. And Danielle is one of my dear friends and a member of my soul family, and I'm really excited for her to come and share with our community today. So Danielle, if you're willing to come on camera, great. Thanks so much for your willingness to serve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Betty. I'm so excited about this. I hope everybody can hear me. Yeah, so I'm not from here. And when I refer to the soul, I'm referring to the energy expressing itself through the physical vessel. So my close friends call me Elle. And I'm just going to start from the very beginning. So the first soul that came through, her name was Crystal, and that's how she identified. When she came through and entered into the physical vessel, she was bright, full of light, and a lot different from everybody else. She was at a higher frequency, and that's how she experienced life. And so, as she experienced life, she also shared how she was experiencing life with the people around her. She would see energy, and she would see things that looked like fairies, and she would want to go and play in nature and do all of those things. And she was just always very aware and in tune with something greater than herself. And so the first part of Danielle's life, the first like 6 years, were pretty great, and like I said, pretty high frequency. And so it was never told to her that that wasn't okay. There were a lot of times that she would look into the mirror and she would tell her mom while looking at her reflection, and she would say, hey, that's not me, I'm Crystal. And so after a while, a lot of people adopted what they thought to be Crystal as her imagination, like her imaginary friend. And that was all right for a pretty long time, until about 6.5, when she turned 6.5. And at 6.5, there was a pretty dramatic experience that happened. She was the vessel, Danielle, the vessel, was raped and molested for a period of 6 months, and she was not allowed to tell anybody about it. And it was a pretty harsh experience. And it was something that the vessel experienced and something that Crystal experienced. And Crystal, being pure, and that's something with both of the souls that have inhabited this vessel, is that this is and was our first time here. The past lives and the memories of those past lives are not of this earthly realm. They do not, there was no identification with it. So with that, that was something that Crystal just could not comprehend. Like, how could something like this happen? And so after a while, she started to experience seeing, and I think what happened is that dropped Crystal into a lower vibrational frequency. So she started to experience more of the polarity and duality that is actually happening within the third dimensional realm of this earth. And that was probably where she needed to be. She needed to have more feet on the ground instead of her head up in the clouds. But that was not something that she was prepared for, nor did she think that she could handle. And so after a while, after it had been, she had been experiencing these things, she started to tell people about it. She started to tell the doctors about it. She started to tell the therapist about it. And she started to say, hey, after they had hurt her for such a long time, say, I've been seeing these lights, and I've been seeing, the fairies, I've been seeing these things. Now she's starting to tell them, hey, I'm seeing this dark entity with like red eyes in the corner of my room, and that was when it was not accepted. That was when people started to tell her, that's not okay. Shh, don't talk about that. And so as she began to tell people, hey, this is my experience, they wanted to medicate her, and they actually put her in a hospital, and she stayed in there, and that's where she learned not to talk about these things. So that was the first time that speaking our truth, was not okay. It was not okay. It was not accepted. And if you did it, there was a trauma involved with that. There was like, we're going to either put you on medicine or you're going to get in trouble, and so it didn't happen, and she didn't continue to speak about it. And by doing that, by holding all of that emotion in, she began to manifest like physical illness. And that lasted for quite some time. After a while, she started to experience things like homelessness with her mother, and more emotional abuse and more physical abuse. And that was not something that she could fathom. That was not something that she could bear and that she could continue to carry. And so after a while, she ended up through the exhaustion of it. And just to kind of fast forward to get into, because I know we have 20 minutes, which is like this is infinite. I don't know how to squeeze infinity into 20, the measurement of 20 minutes, Um, But anyways, so after a while, you know, the only thing that she knew was the rage, and that's what she experienced, and that's what she expressed. And it was so far from who she actually was that she was just covered up. And so there was, leading up all of that through childhood, that led up to a wreck that happened. It happened in 2000. It was May 4th, 2000. And I kind of look at walk-ins, and like my good friend Betty will explain it too, as two souls being on a marathon, and one passes the baton to another, and the other gets to stop, and the other one starts to walk, starts to experience, starts to live the life for them. And I get a little emotional about it because it was really harsh. And Crystal was done. She had had enough. She was exhausted, not just from the denseness and the harshness, but from the strange and volatile experiences that happen on this planet. So at that time, during the wreck, when the NDE happened, is when Crystal exited the body, but instead of the physical vessel dying off because there was no life force, is when Elle walked in. Elle is the energy expressing itself through this physical vessel now. So during that time, and this again, neither one of these souls have had an experience in this earthly realm before. So when they came through, it was the souls coming through the Akashic records, as the Akashic records imprinted on that soul a lot of memories for the earthly realm, so they were able to function a little bit instead of just coming in and being like, whoa, what is this? Which that was also the reaction that both of them had, like, this is wild. And at that time too, there was a lot of a veil of amnesia, the veil of forgetfulness that I think some of us hear about, where that was kind of that was cut off. A lot of those memories were cut off. And there's something about Danielle's vessel within the DNA that is able to house these higher frequency energies, and the higher frequency souls. So with Elle, the memories that I do have with Elle is that she's blue. I'm blue. And when I'm referring to that's who I'm referring to. I'm blue. When I look at my hands, I have 3 fingers here. These fingers don't make a lot of sense to me, but I have them. So when Elle came and it was decided to be an exchange, is when I was standing at something that looked like a large globe, or like a snow globe, just a large bubble. And in the bubble, it was like I could see down within earth, and surrounding it were these 3, maybe 4 behind them, elderly, like my elders energy, with robes, with coats. And then I could see out into another city. And when I showed up, I was reporting for duty. I was ready to do this. I wanted to do this. I felt prepared to do this. There was a slideshow. So in the NDE, when it happened, it wasn't like I didn't see the memories of my past experience on Earth. I saw like future experiences, and I was agreeing to these experiences. And I believe now a lot of the times that I have deja vu, even though there's not a lot of recognition in that, I do believe that that was part of the life plan that was happening. The part of agreements where I'm like, okay, I've made it to this part in the timeline. Now I can jump, now there's a quantum leap. Now we've learned this, we can go a little bit further. And so during that is when, I walked in. And when I walked in, I forgot everything. I came through. I had the people around me were just astounded by the personality change that had happened. I could not, again, this was my first time. The past lives that I've had before were in different places and in different realms. Earth is is completely different from anything I could have ever expected. So now I'm like, oh, what was I thinking when I was like, let's do this? And now I'm like, whoa, because it is a lot. And so I had forgotten all of that. I had, that had left me. And so I was just like, I don't know how to function. None of the systems make sense, whether it be the money, the politics, and I don't get into any of that. Just any of those things, like, it's confusing, and it's an illusion, and it's disharmony, and that just, it's sad. And so I couldn't make sense of it. And so the best thing that I could do, for me, what I found, I became a drug addict. And I started to do drugs, and I noticed that they alleviated the harshness of this realm and of this planet. And I began to just fall into whatever that looked like, because I didn't know where I belonged, because felt completely out of place. And I became affiliated with a gang, which is wild. And so these were things like this became my life for 17 years, because I had no idea of who I actually was or what I was doing. And I couldn't make sense of it. And it was very, very, very tough. And so just to, and I could tell you all about the experiences of being a drug addict and gang affiliation. This is wild. I had contracted twice. I contracted hepatitis C. I don't like to share that with people. I don't, that's very vulnerable. But what's wild is through that time, because Danielle houses these higher energies, and because of the miraculous, the consciousness, the level of consciousness that I get to be at, is that my body spontaneously healed itself. I have medical records that show that my body spontaneously healed itself from disease. So today, Danielle does not harbor or have any of that within her system. And in fact, even through all of the unhealthy decisions that I had made, I have come out unscathed, and healthier than I've ever been. And so I'm not going to take you through the emotional turmoil of the 17 years of drug addiction and gang affiliation. You guys know all about it. It's a pretty violent place to be. I had been locked up. I was a jailbird, all of the things. And then something started to happen, and I started to become aware that there was something different, something was going on. I started to sense that reality itself was changing, and I started to sense that there was going to be a direction that I needed to go in. But I was still, on drugs. And so it was with the total solar eclipse, August 21st, 2017, that I became activated. And when I say I became activated, all of my energy centers open. And I don't just mean the main 7 energy centers. I mean, my entire system opened up. All memories of my ancient galactic roots came flooding in, and I became aware of the multidimensional realms that exist all around us. For somebody, that's something that I've chosen, and like my good friend Betty, she's chosen too. We had to have something intense. We needed it to be dramatic, when it happened, because that was just part of the plan that we had agreed upon. And so anyways, when I became aware of all of that, if you can imagine, after having the ego in place for such a long time, and now I'm communicating with this guy named Michael, who I can't see, which has, for me, has wings and a sword, which Archangel Michael, I am communicating with source, God, spirit, something that I had never done before. I was in and off of the Appalachian. Oh, I was in and off of the Appalachian Trail, for some reason, for the exact reason I was supposed to be. And I started to commune with nature, and I started to speak with the trees, and I started, to speak with the earth. And this was really hard too, because if you remember in the beginning of my story, with Crystal, I still have those memories with crystals, and all of those things were imprinted into this part of the life too, so I could continue to function and continue on with the mission that I had been given, because there is something happening. And it was mentioned at the beginning, there is a mass awakening happening on this planet right now. And a lot of us, and if you're watching this, and I can't tell you because it's your experience, but I would say, you might be onto something, but a lot of us are here to help and assist humanity evolve in consciousness. That's what we're here to do. We're here to, thank you. We're here to help the planet. We're here. And like, humanity and the Homo sapiens species is always evolving, but there is a rapid evolvement taking place. And so anyways, during that, I had just been opened up, and the veil had just been ripped, and I thought I had lost my mind. I thought I was crazy. And so I was telling people about it again, and it was really hard to do that because of the past experiences where people are like, shh, don't, you're not, that's not accepted. That's not okay. But this time it was like, I can't keep this to myself because it's my reality. And so, I, through like speaking through to this invisible force, I kept telling people I was seeing auras. I didn't understand it. And I was like, hey, I can see it, but I need something that I can hold, that I can feel. I need something physical because I think that I've lost my mind. Like, I think that I might be crazy. I'm talking to extraterrestrials. What does that mean? And I heard that feathers appear when angels are near. And so if you could just send me a feather, I'll do whatever you want, and the thing is it was like, hey, here's your choice to me. You can either exit the body or you can choose to walk in the light. And I was like, well, I'm going to need some proof that I'm not just talking to myself and that this is really happening. And that's when I asked for the feathers. And the next day I went on the trail. And I walked a little bit out, and there was a pile of feathers. And I got to my knees and I dug through the feathers, and I was looking for a body, like, and there wasn't one. There wasn't a body. And I took them back, and I think I made a dream catcher with them. And I was like, okay, maybe that was a coincidence. Just one feather tomorrow, and I'll do whatever you want, And I went out on a different trail the next day, and there was another a pile of feathers that I still have, and I have them on my altar. And I got on my knees and I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Like, what am I supposed to do? Help me. And that's when I was catapulted into another dimension. And I came and walked, and then I heard, stand with a strong back and speak your truth. Strong back, open heart. And so I did. And through that, it's wild being catapulted into a different dimension, because I began to tell people the same things that I had been telling them that they had told me I wasn't allowed to talk about. And they said, okay, great. That sounds like your spirituality, which was wonderful. And that's something that I've been continuing to do. I'm continuing to help, raise the vibration of the planet and show up in that way. And it's not been easy, and it's not always easy speaking the truth, but that's how I can be my most authentic self. And holding that most authentic vibration for me is how I'm going to help others be able to do that for themselves. And so that's what I continue to do. And I continue to, to be met with that. I'm completely provided for. I have, my community of people. There's a lot of times where people just don't understand, and that's okay, because it's up to us to have compassion for them. We are here to be the change. We are here to help, so everybody doesn't ruin themselves and destroy themselves. So anyways, that's just the 20-minute, roundup of what I could bring in. And I'm really grateful for this space, and for Betty and for IANDS for always letting me be able to speak my truth, because that's been extremely hard in doing. And so thanks.
Thanks so much, Danielle. That was really beautiful. I'm so grateful for your willingness to stand in your truth and be your authentic self. Thank you so, so much. So we're going to bring up our next panelist, and our next panelist is Mike Benavee. And Mike, if you just come on camera, that would be great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Let me bring you up here with me. So Mike is a noted author and entrepreneur, and he has this wonderful book that I'm holding right here, The Way of the Soul Guide. And so right before I knew Danielle was winding down, and I opened up the book to a random page because I do that a lot with Mike's book because there's just so much awesome information in here. And the page that I randomly opened it up to was Awakening to the Future, Embracing the Spiritual Shift of Our Time, which I think is so synchronistic and so beautiful. Mike experienced a near-death experience in a life-changing car accident. And he has a video on IANDS groups and events where you can see the pictures of the accident, just completely tremendous. And he had a walk-in soul experience. And I'm going to let him tell his story. He's also a twin flame in union. And I'm so grateful for the service that him and his wife provide to the collective. And thank you, Mike, for your willingness to serve our community.
It's my absolute pleasure. First of all, welcome everybody, beautiful souls. Thanks for having me here. I must say, I'm a big believer in it's an individual journey thing, but I couldn't hold my tears towards the end. I don't know Danielle. I've never met her. I've never spoken to her. Betty knows me, but I could relate to everything she said about the walking soul, the situations, the feelings, the descriptions, because I always tell people there is no human way to describe what a walking soul is. So, but I'm going to try. Before I get into my near-death experience story, which is, that's what's popular, that's what people like to hear, but the outcome of it or the shifting moment. And by the way, my activation also happened in 2017. And there's many, many similarities. But I'm going to tell you something. A walking soul, if I can describe it in a sentence, is, and instead of you getting into higher consciousness on your own with a lot of work, higher consciousness is getting into you. It's amazing because outside of this physical consciousness, there is no concept of time. There is no limitation. There is nothing. We are endless. There are endless opportunities for us. There's endless things we can do. We live as souls. When we are here trapped in the human body, this is where problem starts. So I'm going to take you to my story, and then I'm going to try to merge it with Danielle's as far as the similarity, because it's really important to know that though each of us has a different journey, we all come from the same origin. I call the realms of walking is the realms of angels. It's pretty much an angelic being, angelic guided being. We are human souls. We're no special than any other soul. However, we just bring higher consciousness, and I'll explain. It all begins 2014. I was a correctional officer in a maximum security prison. So I was also gang affiliated, but on the other side, I was the one who's been spending time. And if those of you know a maximum security prison, it's where the worst of the worst of criminals are housed. So there's a lot of negative energies in the air. Now, back then, I was just a very egoistic person. I always knew I had something special in me as far as spirituality, but I always rebelled it. I was against it. So I was just trying to make money and have a good job and just dating life and you name it. And I was just sucking in these energies every day at the prison, seeing things that I could never even begin to describe, and I'll save it from you. But just to see that underworld and to understand that humanity and the human soul can be in so many shadows, and you starting feeling for these people, you starting feeling for them as souls and not as people and their actions, and because it's all meant to be. And it made me lose sleep to a point where after 14-hour shifts almost every day, night shift, of course, I get into a bad accident. And it wasn't the classic NDE. It wasn't like, me seeing the tunnel and just coming back with immediate insights like, wow, I saw the light, I'm just going to be a better person. It was like something happened, I came back, and then there was just a spiritual battle that lasted 7 years, where at the beginning, when you start merging with this higher version of yourself, in my case, it's no different soul. It was just like we have past life. Danielle was talking about deja vu, so that's pretty much a sign that you've been here before, maybe in a different body, but your soul still remembers. So just like that, you have also higher self, like the soul outside this body is not limited by what we know as time. So it's very hard to explain, but think about it. When there's no time limitation, you can be anywhere at any time. So there is a version of us. It's almost like a plan B. I was supposed to do something here as a soul, and I chose away from the light. I chose the ego. I chose the now. I always tell people that um, while the devil pays you in cash, God gives you a post-dated check. You never see really reward. You want things now. Your ego wants now. And ego is really the need to receive, to receive over the need to give. This is what having ego means. So I was battling this whole time. So when you come as a walking soul, there is a battle that start happening because your body is telling you, your ego, these energies are telling you, what's going on? Who are you? What happened? And you start seeing changes. And then all of a sudden, my life was taking a shift downwards instead of upwards. I was just going through a bad divorce, and just life was just really, really challenging. And it's one of those problems that you really you feel like you haven't done anything wrong, and it's just life hits you harder and harder, and like your soul is being thrown across. And I didn't understand it at first, and then came the depression, and this spiritual awakening was not as pleasant as what people might think. It was just almost like a physical torture. And but then only after later 2017 I start seeing the benefits from it. I suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder because of the sites in the prison and the accident. And because of that, I was depressed. Like I said, I was going through a divorce, not a bad divorce, but a divorce. Every divorce is bad. I mean, nothing was really bad. It was just very challenging, to leave my kids behind, leave the house, and it felt like I had no hope. Like at one point, I lived in my car for a few days, and I never even told my family. And that was the first time because I was this established businessman before, and I had money, and people knew me as a family man. All of a sudden, I'm divorced. So these challenges all happened right after the accident. And they say when it rains, it pours. So really, that's what happened to me. It was really, really bad. So I remember that I ended up telling my ex-wife that I don't want to live anymore. And I just said that because it felt like I just want to say it, to let it out. I really didn't mean it. And I ended up being in a hospital and in a mental institution for 2 days. And I've never seen the walls of a place like this before. I didn't feel belong. I didn't know what I was doing there. But then when I ended up being there, I realized that I'm there for a reason. I was around the people who were admitted, and they were different ages with different issues, but they all had this one thing in common. They were just really pure souls on the inside. And I was like, if I'm here for 2 days, they won't let me out. Might as well just do something good. And I remember sitting with these people, just listening to them. And one of them couldn't even talk. His thing was that his name was Chris. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't speak at all. Like he wouldn't speak. That was his thing. So they said that he hadn't said a word in like 2 years being there. And I was sitting with him and I was just talking to him, knowing that he's not going to say anything back. But I was sitting there just reflecting on what I'm doing here, what I'm going to do with my life. And they're trying to medicate me every day. And that's what they do there. And I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want to be here. But at the same time, the only thing I was happy about was to just be around these people and talk to them and treat them nice. And I remember when I left, everybody wrote me letters. Like they took time to write me letters and how much I meant to them and how much they were. And then that Chris told me, thank you. And everybody was shocked that he was speaking. And that's documented. I got this thank you letters until this day. Like the doctors were shocked, the nurses were shocked that he's actually speaking back. And this is where I start realizing, hey, everything that's happened to me since this accident is not a result of a bad luck. It was a transformation. It was like child's birth. It had to come with contraction. You have to completely shed every piece of ego that you have in order to walk the path that you are spiritually meant to walk. And that's what happened to me. And all of a sudden, the psychic abilities have started to come to me, the visions. Danielle, you mentioned Archangel Michael. This is even what I said in my book. This is the relationships we get with them as walk-ins. And I've heard it with other people as well. And it's amazing how much we have in common, though, like in this earthly consciousness, we don't really know each other. But like I tell my wife and like I tell the people that I talk to and assist and help, walking souls are here to contribute to the world's positive energy, to pursue justice, to help those, to guide those, not to preach, not to try to change, not to patronize anybody, not to think that we're smarter. No, it's simply to reflect, to just put a spiritual mirror in front of somebody and be like, hey, see your soul, see your capabilities. This is who you are. And most of the time, the souls that are meant to speak to, because I'm not a business, I'm not like out there just offering my services. I'm called a soul guide, but I'm a spiritual traffic sign, if you would, and I'm simply there for the people who are meant to cross path with me. And when they do, they usually even higher vibrational souls, they just don't know it. So a walking soul really is a messenger, a guide, somebody who's doing assignments for angels. There's no time to go back and reincarnate, because some people ask me, why not just reincarnate? What for? What we're doing, we're just restarting the system. We're updating the system. We're doing plan B. Something has to happen. Usually it's a near-death experience or just something sudden that's going to punch a hole between our world and the realm of souls, which is unlimited, that allows that walking soul, that higher, more pure. It's almost like recycling of energies. Like our soul comes pure, it comes knowing its purpose. It's no longer a slave for the ego because it knows the ego. It knows what the ego does. So we really just cancel everything materialistic to a point of existence so we can exist. And all we do is just like diamonds in the floor. We look as hard as we can daily to do good deeds, to guide, to help, to donate, to contribute, to just spread good and love, because we know this is not the end. And unlike a near-death experience, which usually is a beautiful spiritual awakening, it's a sign, it's also somebody's personal journey. Walking souls, and I don't even like the term walking, it's a new age term because it doesn't do justice with how powerful that thing is. It's like a guardian angel give an assignment to a human soul. So everything that angel knows, everything that angel wants you to do, like it's all your privilege, you're honored. I feel honored to do that. So looking back, and I'm disabled. I've just had, if you don't mind me sharing, 2 very complicated surgeries that failed, and I'm about to do a 3rd one, and I'm about to lose my ability to walk, but that's all physical. Because in the spirit, in the soul, I've never been more awake. I mean, I see colors, humans can, I see auras, I see people as souls. I see when they're illuminated, I see when the shadows, it's amazing, but I'm not here to brag about it. I'm not here to just try to flash all that stuff. I'm here to show you that each and every one of us can get to it. We're all souls. You don't have to be a walking. We all, I say all rivers eventually lead to the sea. You have your own route, your own time. Just know beyond any shadow of a doubt that you are truly a soul that's having a very, very small, temporarily, unclean, unholy, limited body experience where all the negative that we can feel is limited to here. But the point is to know that you are a soul while you're in this body. So now the body is a tool. Now the body is something you use to do amazing things, and not the other way around. Remember what I said about the ego. The ego is having the need to receive for ourselves over the need to give. It's very hard to give something to someone when you need it yourself. Usually we don't do that. It's first us, and then we can show generosity. But the true generosity is to give from yourself. So this is, to bring it down to 20 minutes. I could talk hours and hours, but I'm respectful of this format, and I'm really, really excited to hear the next story. But on the nutshell, this is what it is. Like I said in the beginning, it's instead of reaching a very high level of consciousness spiritually, that consciousness is picking you without even you agreeing to it, and letting you walk this journey. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And unless I have more time, I wasn't really paying attention, Betty. I'm sorry. So if I have more time, I
You'll have 5 minutes.
still have 5 minutes. Wonderful. So, like I said, I'm going to tell you. What happened to me with Archangel Michael was that shortly after the accident, and by the way, I want to point out something so beautiful that made me really tear when Danielle spoke about the ability to heal ourselves. It's so true, and it's also witnessed the angelic concept of the whole thing. I was in a car accident that I even spoke to scientists because I couldn't believe, like, if you see the car after that, it was 80 miles per hour, hitting a brick wall and then a rollover 5 times. And most of the damage happened to the driver's side where I was driving. It was a minivan, and it was just all like a crushed can. And then I'm rushed to the hospital. I'm feeling great. I felt at that time during the accident, but right after the accident, just like I took a shower, 1,000 times better. Like I was just somewhere on an island, I don't know, just relaxing. And I felt amazing. So when they rushed me to the trauma center, because there's no way a person is not going to have something wrong with him after such a wreck. So it took me to the trauma center, and they scanned me everywhere. And the doctor, professor, whoever it was, came into the room after they scanned me from head to toe. And he said, "I've never seen anything like that." So, "You sure you drove this car?" I said, "Well, yeah, the ambulance brought me here, the police." And he said, "Well, I've never seen anything like that because you didn't even break a nail. Like, you don't even have a scratch. You don't even have a bruise." And I couldn't believe that. Like, I could not believe that. And then days after, I'm seeing Archangel Michael hovering over my bed, just like in circles. And and I didn't pay too much attention to angels or anything spiritual back then. And then to the ability to just be a medium, a psychic medium like this, but not with everybody, with just chosen people that I meet at the country club. I see this old lady is like, "Your husband says hi and he's missing playing jazz music with you." And she's like, "How do you know?" She almost fainted. I was like, I don't know. I'm sorry, lady. I got scared. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't, a known psychic or didn't even know I had this thing in me. But that was part of the spiritual awakening. That was part of, it's not even an awakening, it's the spiritual shift. And like Danielle said, there's a shift in the world, and many, many, many of us are waking up in different variation, not necessarily walking, but that's what the beautiful thing is, because there are opposing energies. You see what's going on in the world. I don't have to tell you. I don't want to manifest it. And watch what you say, watch your emotions. You manifest everything. In this spiritual awakening time, we're not only awakening to see things, we are also manifesting things. And you have to remember that. So I hope these were my 5 minutes. So thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much, Mike. So grateful for you and your service to our community and your service to the collective. Totally amazing. So I'm going to bring up the next presenter, and please feel free, whether you're joining us on YouTube or you're here in the live webinar, utilize the Q&A section. We're going to get to a live Q&A after all the presenters have presented. So next, I'm going to ask Andena to come on camera. Thank you. Let me just pull you up on screen with me. And Andena is she's a guide. She's a spiritual teacher. And I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed. We recorded an episode of the IANDS podcast together, and Andena spoke about light language, and she's just coming into this integration of the walk-in experience. And so I'm so grateful for your willingness to come on and serve our community here at IANDS. I'm going to toss it right over to you.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you guys for having me. Thank you for this platform. Thank you to everyone who spoke so far, because you really kind of set the stage for what this thing is. And so as you've heard everybody speak, you will come to understand that it's difficult to articulate something that's taken a lifetime to come into fruition. To consolidate that down into 20 minutes is nearly impossible. And in preparing for this, I've gotten with my guidance and asked, how in the world can we consolidate this down into 20 minutes, compact it into 20 minutes? So we are going to do our very best. And so I'm going to ask you to take a breath into that heart space, because it's in that heart space that we have an openness to receive, to put ourselves into that sacred space, that portal space, to be able to receive all that is, that extends beyond the level of the logical mind. And so before I get into sharing my story, I'm going to level set just a little bit and approach this from a little bit of a different perspective, because I've come to understand it from a little bit of a different, in a little bit of a different way. And so to kind of set the stage, I'll say I have come to know from my perspective that we all create our experience. We as souls design our experience before we come into this earth plane. And on top of that, I believe that we as souls come into this physical experience not alone. We come as part of a team, part of a soul team, part of a soul group. And while we may outpicture or be the one that serves as boots on the ground, we are accompanied by a host of team members that work together to learn through this physical vessel, which presents as us. So at any given moment, we are never alone. And you'll see me nod from time to time, or my head may turn from time to time. That's because my team, my spiritual team, is very present, and they are literally as close to me as breathing. So as they speak, my body does respond in that way. And so asking, where do we begin in sharing our story? So we will say that this journey has been one of a progressive awakening. We've been in this physical plane, knowing always on some level that there was more that existed. There was more to this physical state of being, this physical beingness, than met the physical eyes. We've always known that to some degree. And growing up, we never had anyone that we could explicitly share that with, but we always had that knowing in the back of that human mind somewhere. And so many experiences that we've had were intended to bring about a level of trust. And so we've been progressively expanded in our capability to trust, because I believe in the divine orchestration that needed to happen to bring us to a level where we were open and ready to take on that higher aspect of us, that elevated soul, that we had to establish an unhindered, an unrationalized ability to trust, a trust that extended beyond the human mind's capacity to bring about or to grasp things, to accept things that needed to take place. So as I look back over the life experience, it was as if every experience came about where it was an exit point. Every experience, everything that we came in contact with could have been an exit point. It was either trust or check out. that was the nature of all of our experience, and all of those experiences were progressive. I mean, they expanded in their intensity, in their capacity, in their capacity to take us out, to ultimately to leave this physical earth plane. And so in going through those levels of trust, there came about a point where we just trusted unquestioned. We had an unquestioned trust. We had an unrationalized, it really didn't make sense to the logical mind, an unnatural ability to simply trust the voice as the voice would speak. Any situation, falling downstairs, being presented with incidences or experiences that could have taken us out. We never questioned things because we realized at some point that if we followed the voice, then our life would continue to progress. So in looking back over things, it seems as if the native soul, that was the job of the native soul, to establish a degree of trust, to bring us into a space where we trusted unequivocally, unquestioningly, and opened ourselves up to the greater level of experiences that were a part of our design program that we were here to experience. And so, like many things, we live life according to the standards that have been imposed and established by the people around us, parents, teachers, all of those things. We live the life that was created for us within this physical plane. We went to school and progressed, got a job, worked in the corporate world for many, many years, to the point where it seemed like that was no longer a fit. Got married and faced the challenges of being within that marital relationship. And as many things are within this physical experience, the context of relationship and being married presented the greatest mirror for us. That was our best classroom, because it catalyzed everything that we had experienced over the course of a life into one situation that kind of brought us into a space where we were set up to take on that higher aspect of us. And so in being in that relationship, conflicts presented, and really those conflicts just set the stage for us to ultimately see the truth of who we were and who we are, and how we were using the imposed teachings or the imposed standards that society had kind of infused up on top of us to judge our life experience, basically. And so what I realized at that point is that I was holding myself to a standard that wasn't truly aligned with us as a soul, wasn't aligned with us as a soul. I was being someone else, not being authentic to us. And so I kind of had to take a step back into self and make the choice within that moment to truly align with the soul aspect of us. And in making that choice, then things really started to open up. And dealing with the conflicts of going through marriage, not wanting to go down the same road that parents and other family members had traveled in terms of divorce, looking really at how I was creating the experience that had become such a catalyzing or conflicting experience for us. Really looking at those things, allow myself to assess everything that I was witnessing, and seeing my hand, the hand that I had played in creating all of those things that I was beginning to experience. And it was in that space that we began to open up. And I think the native soul got to a space where it was ready to take a step aside, or in order to allow that higher aspect of us to come in. So let me say this. I don't use the term walk-in in the way that many people use the term walk-in, because I think it's more than that. It's not always a matter of one soul checking out because it can't go the distance, or it has no desire to go the distance, or it can't, or the life experience has become so difficult and so hard and so harsh that it makes the choice to step aside. For myself, it's been more of an agreement that we all came in here as a team. One of us will get us to one point, open us up to higher levels of frequency, and then allow that highest frequency that we are able to hold to come in to carry us the rest of the way in order to do the things that we've come in here to do as a soul group, to establish within the earth plane. Because as everybody has said before, we're going through a space of evolution, humanity is, and many of us have come to bring new frequencies, have come to anchor new frequencies in order to assist us collectively in establishing new ways of being. And so in order to set the stage for that, a higher frequency soul can't come into a newborn baby. That baby has to be opened up as a channel. That channel has to be opened up and expanded over a period of time in order for that new soul, that higher frequency just soul, to come to step in and kind of carry us the rest of the way. So from our perspective, that's the role that Angela, the original soul, played in opening this vessel up to a higher level of frequency, and then allowing that higher aspect, which is Andena, to come in and kind of take us the rest of the way into the newness that we've come in here to establish. So I'll give you a play-by-play of how this kind of worked out. So I've kind of set the stage, really. And when I got to this space of being really in conflict that was brought about with within the context of the marriage relationship, I started meditating. I really started meditating, and that brought us inside. That really brought us inside, and it began to open things up in a really profound way. And as I was meditating, I began asking questions: why I was so in conflict, what I had done to create all these things, why did I choose in the way that I had chosen up to this point? All of these questions that you begin to ask when you begin to assess and really accept the hand that you played in creating it all. Why did I choose? What would make me choose in this way? I realized everything is divinely orchestrated in order to bring about the experiences that we desire to experience. But why have I chosen this? Why have I chosen that? What can I do now to pivot and shift and walk us into a better way of being? Since I know that I am the creator of my experience, I've come to accept that. So what can I do? What can I do now? And as I began to ask those questions, well, things started to happen. I really started to open up in the space of meditation. And one of the safest place I had to meditate at this particular time, because by this time I was married with 2 kids and there was always noise in the house, I would sit on the floor in my bathroom and meditate. And I was sitting on the floor in my bathroom meditating one particular night, and I felt myself being surrounded by angels. And I felt myself surrounded by angels, and all of a sudden my body kind of went prostrate, like spread out in this way. And so I was familiar with the fact that many people spoke about Kundalini experiences, but this for me on some level was a bit different, because this wasn't something that started in the base of the spine and was moving itself up. It was like a cord connected itself to the back of my neck, and something was searing itself down into my being. I felt the sensation of electricity. I heard electricity. It was like this moving itself down into my physical body. And it was the angels that were standing aside me. I could feel that it wasn't a comfortable feeling for myself. It was almost as if there was a fist pounding itself into the back of my neck, going boom, 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 like this, moving itself down into my vessel. And so as this was happening, I could feel them saying, it'll only be a few more minutes. It'll only be a short time. Just hold on, just hold on. And I did. And once that happened, something clicked. Something happened. And these things with these, what we call walk-in experiences, they aren't really known, or you don't really have context for what exactly happened in the moment. It's only realized in hindsight. It's only realized in hindsight. And so looking back on it, I realized that was that initiation point for when the new soul, when the expanded soul began to make contact so that it can move down into this physical vessel. So for me, it's been that soul, that slow braiding process. That was the initial braiding, was what that incident was. Beyond that, it's been a series of years where that soul has begun to integrate into this physical vessel. So for me, it wasn't as if one soul checks in, the other soul checks out. It's been over a series of years. The last 3 years, that soul made contact and began to move in slowly and integrate with this vessel. And so I say these things are only known in hindsight, because by this point, I was really in contact with my guidance to the point where we automatic write every day. This is our process. I get up in the morning, meditate, and automatic write. And so throughout these last 3 years, every once in a while, I would get an update from the native soul, which I refer to as Angela. The native soul would say, we are still here. It's like we're walking side by side with the new soul, walking side by side. And at this time, I didn't even have a name for the new soul. I just knew there was something that had taken place. And so it was like, Angela is walking side by side with this new aspect that's come in. Okay. Maybe a couple months later, well, Angela is going to take step outside of the body and walk alongside. And so if you are familiar with the way your guidance is present, I said in the very beginning that we're not in this life experience alone. Our guidance team is always with us. They surround us on all sides. We have guidance all around us. And for a time, Angela was in the position of being here, walking alongside the new soul, but she never left. And so maybe like about 6 months ago, I got the message that Angela was now taking a step into the background, leaving the new soul to be fully here. And then in January, I got the note that Angela had taken that step all the way back, and that the new soul, Andena, was fully present, fully established. And it's in January that I finally got settled. I felt a sense of being fully integrated and settled within this physical being, now knowing what we've come here to do and how we've come here to do it. And so I've done many things in order to share expanded consciousness, to bring people into a higher level of consciousness from this perspective, realizing that none of us needs teachers. We only need to be reminded. And so I've now realized my job in this thing is to just be a safe space, to align with the authentic expression of us, so that others feel that same level of safety, so that they can begin to reconnect with the true aspects of themselves, because we serve as reflections for one another. And so in that way, being a resonant mirror for people who are ready to now step into their fully soul aligned truth. So this thing is a process. And I would say for those of us who are presenters here, if you would like more detail, because it's extremely difficult to consolidate this down into 20 minutes, 20 minutes for the sake of this presentation. But if you desire more details, to reach out, to get connected, so that you might be able to see yourself in reflection, in order to step into the truth of who you are, because this is what it's all about. And those of us who stepped into this higher aspect, who've begun to embody the higher frequency version of us, the higher frequency aspect of us that we call a walk-in soul experience, well, we've done that to bring about expanded beingness on the collective scale. So as we do that individually, do we bring us collectively into a higher realm of being. So that was a mouthful. And do I have, how much time do I have left, Betty?
About 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So from that perspective, yeah, this has been, it's been a process. And so now being fully settled and established within this physical vessel, I can say for myself that now I have a different degree of clarity than I've had in the very beginning. It's like you think you've opened up on one level as you begin to step back into your innate intuitive abilities. You think you're here. There's this caution that I'll say. You feel like you're here to save the world, but really you're just here to embody the truth of who you are. And that authentic expression of you is what speaks to the authenticity in the people around you. It resonates on a level of heart that has the power to extend beyond any words that you could ever find to speak. The heart speaks volumes, and it's from that level of authenticity, lived from that space of the heart, that is the thing that changes our world ultimately. So yeah, I'll say allow yourself to live within that space of true heart-centered authenticity, true soul-aligned authenticity. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Andona. I love listening to you talk, and it resonates so much. And I'm just going to ask Mike and Danielle to come back on camera so that we can all be together for this questions and answers portion of the webinar. You guys all did so great. And, I think that it's so beautiful to be able to hear people all speak the same language, even though the experiences are a little bit different, but just the resonance between the three of you, it was really it was very captivating. I was really sitting on the edge of my seat, and I know all of your stories already, but I really enjoyed the flow of this webinar. So thank you all for participating. And I want to get to some of these questions, and I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to answer some of the more broader questions. And then there's a couple of individual questions as well. So one of the first questions that came in that I think is definitely worth addressing is, how can we be sure this is not multiple personality disorder because the circumstances are set up similar, is what this person said. So I want to give you guys some space to share about how do we know that we're not crazy?
Yeah. May I? Yeah, so I thought I was crazy. And when it happened, and I went into a facility and told them about it because I didn't know what to do with myself and I didn't understand what was happening. And so I went in there and I told them, and their main question was, do you want to harm yourself or do you want to harm anybody else? And I said, no, for the first time, I want to learn how to love myself and I want to learn how to love others. And at that point, when they would hear that, they were like, oh, okay. And then they would let me go back to the other part of the facility. And then I would come back again and I would be like, hey, I'm having some issues. I'm hearing some things, I think I might have lost it, but I don't want to take any more medicine, and they would take me back and they would ask me the same questions and it would count out. And I'd be like, no, I want to learn how to love. And that's when they actually told me that it was my spirituality. And I went in there and I was like, so what are we gonna do with me? What are you gonna do? What do I do now? And they had something and that's how I knew I had also catapulted into another dimension, because I went in looking for medical advice. I went in talking to professionals at that point because it was such a huge personality change. And I sat down and I was just crying, and I had a lot of people around me, like a lot of other clients who were saying, she's crazy, she's lost it. And they were afraid of me because they had seen who I used to be and who I was. But who I used to be was a violent gang affiliate, drug addict and all of this. And who I had become was somebody who was like, we need to be the change that we're seeking. We need to love others. We need to be the light. We need to practice spiritual principles. And so there wasn't much of a threat with that. And when I sat down in the office with them, with the medical director, and I said, I'm just bawling. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And they told me, my counselor at that time, she said, you do, and I say this to people, she said, you do you, boo-boo, is what she said to me. And then the medical director, she shifted a piece of paper and turned it around to me, and she pushed it towards me. And this was when I knew that what I had been hearing about standing, with a strong back and open heart was the truth. And I knew I was hearing straight from source, because she pushed it to me. And she said, we think this is your spirituality. And it was a piece of paper that said how to ground your chakra when it's out of whack. And then I left. Yes. And then I left I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, just be you, just do you. And I left. And ever since then, it's been enlightening. I think that is such a beautiful question, though. And I love that, because I was questioning myself. I had the same question, and I had to be told by other people that no, that's not, and I had to be told by people who were in that profession too, that I could trust, that had years of education to let me know that, nope, this is just your spirituality. So.
Okay.
Thanks so
I'll
much.
speak to that. I
Yeah.
think it comes down to the fact that we think there's a one for one. relationship with soul and body. We don't envision ourselves as part of a team coming down into the physical body. There's one of us who serves as boots on the ground, but we are part of a soul team. We don't come into this life experience alone, and many of us don't have that understanding. We don't have that. Many people don't have that understanding. In order to instill it within kids, in order to encourage that or nurture that aspect of our awareness. We are multidimensional beings with many, many aspects. And so if you don't have that awareness, when these things begin to happen, when these aspects of you begin to speak and you begin to hear them as something external to you, you perceive them as something external to you, when they are all aspects of you, part of the unified beingness that presents as you. So I think that's something that has to be known and grasped. Beyond that, though, one way to know for sure is just allowing yourself to sit within that heart space. It is the heart that truly connects you to all that is. Anything that sins beyond that, if you're operating from the level of ego or mind, would put you in a space of resonating with something that may be of a lower frequency. But if you allow yourself to sit within that heart space that is truly aligned to gratitude, love, compassion, and all those fruits of the spirit, those fruits of the soul, that puts you in the space of being in tune with what is true to you. So you don't have to perceive it as something that exists beyond you, outside of you, something that would present a potential to harm you, because it is all part of you, the you that you truly are. Yeah.
Thank you, Andena. Mike, do you want to speak to this too?
Yeah. I think that the question itself, in a way, is a manifestation of fear, and I'll explain. You know, we can always be wrapped around whether we are going insane, whether we have split personality, whatever science decide to do to categorize matters of the soul that they cannot explain themselves. But I think that as long as we refuse to surrender, and that's the word, to surrender to who we truly are, to our core, we ourselves will get into this loop of what's going on. And you know, in my case, the scariest part that I thought that I'm not losing it, but I thought that I'm really losing my identity, is that my priorities, like my whole life, my whole personality went completely 180. Like things that I used to be obsessed with, I can't stand, and vice versa. But it's always to the good. It's a good change. It's really, really shedding. So if you look at a fruit, you know, you can look at some fruit look really weird, but inside there's a tiny little red thing that it's really sweet, right? So the split personality will be the peel. Once you surrender and you allow really yourself to do it, it's an individual journey. You'll know whether you have a split personality or you're going through. That's the whole beautiful thing. And what's spiritual awakening? We're all sleeping. We're in one consciousness, and then slowly. And how do you wake up? You wake up. You don't want to wake up. It's hard to merge. It's hard to kind of transition from that sleep. You can't take somebody right at 3 a.m. like, go to your office right now, 10 minutes. No, I need to wake up. I need to drink my coffee. So spiritual is the same thing. I think you have to give it time so you can feel the spiritual authenticity of it, and you have to surrender. And you know, in your heart.
Yeah, thank you for that reflection. So beautiful. Okay, so there's a couple of more broad questions that I want to ask all of you. Melissa is in the questions and answers on the webinar here. And she said, thank you for being here. You're not alone. As I'm sure you know, there are many of us here to assist with the change. Melissa's a walk-in soul as well. And she asked, how does your work manifest? So I'll let each of you take a turn kind of talking about how your work manifests for this shift.
How does our work
Saying ladies
manifest?
first, whoever.
Yeah.
Whoever.
How does your work manifest to assist with change, the change that's taking place now?
It's kind of known in the moment. I mean, it presents itself by way of you aligning with the true aspect of you. And I feel like that draws to you a certain group, a certain demographic of people, right? You connect on the level of resonance. And from that group, do you kind of get insight into how you need to work with that particular group? I think the work itself springs forth from the self. It's not by virtue of anything that presents in the external world. It's welling up from the inside. It's literally soul inspired. And so it's being pushed forward. And so the connection point or the challenge is determining how to best bring that into the physical so that it speaks in the way that we desire to speak to the world, that we present and anchor the degree of frequency that we desire to anchor within this physical plane. It wells up in many ways. For myself, it presents artistically in videos and things like that, but all of it at a core is intended to evoke, to speak from the level of heart, to resonate, to go into resonance with the level of heart. If you approach what I do from the space of your logical mind, it's going to bypass you every time, because this whole thing, us moving into ascended ways of being, is allowing ourselves to move, exist, and breathe and exist from the space, the level of heart-centeredness. It's the heart that connects us all, right? Yeah.
Well, if I may, I manifest with daily actions with beautiful souls. For the past 2 years, have been people that are walking with me, and just all they do is we sit and do these one-on-one sessions. We're really just a light exchange. Sometimes it's not saying anything; it's telepathical, but it's really just core, conversations. And I always tell people, I've been waiting on you. I've been waiting on your soul. I don't know you, but I've been waiting on you. So I do that. And I have a Facebook page where I put daily insights and videos. I just wrote another book about, it's commentary on an ancient mystical book of manifestation, of how the world was created with letters and numbers and stuff. And I really just had a vision about it for years, to just really just give my message about that. And some people may resonate, and it's aimed to specific souls. And I try to do good. I try to do good in any way I can, in the smallest little things that people don't even realize. Even just smiling at somebody, helping. The small little, you know what I mean? But they mean so much, and I feel the energies like they echo in the other realms. More than all these, big show off stuff, like the small little things, especially with the needy, like give for yourself, lift people up spiritually. And there's so many opportunities in front of us, presented every single day. And I think this is because this is the calling. The calling was to do that, and I answered, and I'm doing it till it's decided that my soul is no longer need to be here.
Thank you for that, Mike and Andona. Danielle, do you want to add anything?
Sure. I'm not a manifester. I have a little bit of a different experience. And I found out through human design too, through learning that I was a projector, that helped me understand how to approach life a little bit differently. So I am here to just anchor in the light, the higher frequency light. And I'm not just a generator either. I'm not, I am at some points a conduit, just depending. But I really just, I kind of just be, and things they show up when and where they're supposed to, whether that be through people or situations. And I am able to, through my own compass within my heart, able to figure out where I'm supposed to put my attention. And usually that is when I put my attention towards something and it feels restricting, that is not the direction. But if I put my attention over here and I look at this and it feels more expansive, then that's where I turn, and that's where I go. I do like to, how Mike had mentioned, through the acts, that's something that I do. That's where I put a lot of this energy. Is into spiritual practices and spiritual principles, by being kind, by being loving. And that's really my work. Everything else just comes and falls into place when I put myself out there and try and make things happen. It doesn't really work that well for me, but that's just because that's how my energetic signature is. So yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into some other stuff. So Angela is in the webinar and asked, Seth from the Seth material, who was channeled by Jane Roberts, shared that we journey back home each night while we sleep to consult with our soul family. This includes working out plans that are already in action and new plans we need to make, such as switching souls. I'd love to hear what Andena has to say about this. I really resonate with how Andena slowly switched souls. Does Andena have any memory of working with her soul family while going through the process? And I think we could probably open this up to everybody, but Andena, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So I will say I have, okay, so my guides are bringing back one particular memory where I communed with myself. I had a dream. It was almost like an NDE, but it was in the dream itself. And I met with my higher aspect in this dream state. I was a light being, although I knew that that was myself. I was sitting beside, and that higher aspect showed me myself dying. I witnessed myself dying and going through this whole death experience. And she explained that there was something coming. I would have to surrender to it, and we would move forward in that space. And this was really when things kind of started to open up for myself. Beyond that, though, my guides speak to me in the physical. And so it's not like I have to go into the dream state in order to commune with and remember them. They are fully here. You can all but see them. So when they speak, my body is literally responding. As I'm nodding, they are speaking to me, giving me all of these things. So your team is as close to you as breathing. It comes out. I think when Seth spoke at the time, people were so unfamiliar with this way of being that they wouldn't even grasp, many people wouldn't even grasp the idea of guides being in the physical space or so connected with them as close as breathing. So he had to tie it back. They had to tie it back to the dream state because that's where we are most open and least resistant to that idea of those particular things. But really, your spiritual team is you. You are all connected as one beingness, and you are always in communion. And so from that respect, I'm always in communication with that guidance. We are always communicating. We are collaborating about literally everything. Like when I said, when I discussed my story and shared that it was a progressive level of opening and trusting, now that's like second nature. I'm always communing with my guides, even about the most mundane things. There's some level of check-in. Do we want to proceed in this way? How do we as a team want to proceed? Because we as a team are growing through this vessel that presents as Andena. This is one singular point of focus through which we are all expanding and growing in what we came to experience within this earth plane. So the communion is always happening, whether I'm awake or asleep.
Thank you so much for that. I want to be mindful of the time because we're winding down. So I want to ask this other question that came up, kind of two questions combined, but somebody shared. I thought of this as I listened to Mike. Not sure if it's a good question for the webinar, but if we heal ourselves with intention and prayer, why do we, in parentheses, awakened people who know this truth, still need surgery or medication? So this person went on to say, my best friend is one of the most awake souls I've ever met, yet still suffers with epilepsy, and I guess it confuses me. And then another question had also come in about Mike, how do you feel? What do you feel is the reason for the repeated surgeries and the things that are going on with your physical body?
Well, first, thank you for the questions. I'll answer the first one. And again, it's all based on my personal experience. And it's very important to mention that we all have our own journey, and the journey is different, yet we find common grounds on many things. Now to the question, we have this question of like, why do we have sudden death syndromes in babies? These babies were never spotted that these pregnancies were normal. Nobody expected it. They haven't lived enough to even get to a point of why did their heart just stop? It's part of a soul journey. These things are our challenges in life, are how it's manifested. It comes in many, many ways. When I say heal ourselves is where, we have two journeys in life. We have the life journey and the soul journey. The soul journey is the things that happen that we really have no control over. We just have to embrace them as they come. And the life journey are things that happen according to our actions and choices in life. You know, if I go to play basketball and I'm too rough and I'm going to end up surgery, that's not part of my soul journey. So the part of healing is, I'm talking about that if it's not like, it wasn't meant to be for me to die in a car accident. It was just an excuse for something larger to happen. I was able to heal. Once you connect it to your soul, I think that you have to almost give up something physical. It's almost, in my case at least, it's almost like a Libra scale. It's a balance. Like I had to give up this, or you know what? My theory is that these forces cannot mess with me with the spiritual, like because I'm awake, because I know that I'm a soul. So they mess with you in the physical, trying to break you. Anything can try to break you down. Like you can't surprise me with a bill. They'd be like, "Oh my God, your account is on like, oh, what? What is this?" You know what I mean? Or he said, she said, all that stuff. I don't. So it attacks you where it hurts when you can't control it. You know, that's your test. That's your trial. That's how you give up these energies. So but why people have surgeries and stuff, that's according to their journeys. And when we pass from here, we'll look back and reflect, and it's just part of growth.
Love that. Thanks so much for that reflection, Mike. So there's
Can I speak
another,
to that?
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Can I speak to the
Sure.
epilepsy, the seizures and stuff like that? Sometimes these things can be tied to energy because we're all antenna. As a human vessel, you are an antenna receiving frequencies in multiple planes and multiple levels. And so sometimes there's some work that needs to be done as far as grounding those frequencies. And so sometimes with seizures, that can be the case. There's just a disconnect, an imbalance in the levels of frequencies that are being processed through this physical vessel. The physical vessel can only hold so much. So it's important to align those chakras for that particular, for that reason alone, so that you can hold and allow those frequencies to move through you and ground themselves and to work with Mother Earth in that way, so that she can assist in grounding those frequencies. So sometimes that plays a role in that particular outpicturing physicality. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So Gregory in the chat asked something that I think is really interesting. I would love to get your guys' perception on this. He said, I've been researching walk-in souls for the past 2 years, and I'm under the belief that walk-ins are entering children between the ages of 4 to 7 and are replacing the gender of the existing souls and manifesting them, who are now being labeled as transgender and non-binary. What are your beliefs about this phenomenon? Does anybody have any thoughts around this? Kind of controversial. I thought that it was so interesting.
I think it is. I think it speaks to where we are going as humanity in general, because the oneness is the unification of the masculine and feminine, right? And so the world pictures outside of us what needs to take place within us. Like the world outside is a mirror to the self. And so on some level, internally, collectively, we are dealing with that balance. We are trying to come to terms with and reconcile the balance of the masculine and feminine. So it's outpicturing itself in many ways. And it won't be until we understand the necessity of bringing them into union, to the androgynous state of union, that we can really reconcile in the physical what's going on or what needs to take place internally. This is a calling forth of that. This is bringing our attention internally to that aspect of us, because we both, whether we are gendered as female or male, we are both of them. We all embody masculine and feminine energy. And the goal for us as a being is to bring that into a state of balanced, harmonic union within the self. That's what oneness is. That's what oneness is. And so I think this outpicturing, however it outpictures, is drawing our attention to that necessity that lies within all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that God source has reproductive organs. That's just my belief. So I think that as we continue to ascend in consciousness and evolve, and our consciousness as a species expands, we're going to come more into that God consciousness. And as we come more into the God consciousness, it's going to be like, well, I can really relate with all of it because God is everything, you know, and so that's just my take on it too.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. When we look at ourselves in a soul, through a soul perspective, we are everything.
Mhm.
And God is everything. And you know, even if we go biblical to the biblical story, we all know Adam and Eve, who were they? They were one. They were one that became two. They were never two individuals. Their soul was the classic first whatever twin flame. It shows you one thing. In reincarnation, we can even reincarnate in something else that's living, in a plant, an animal. Like there is no limitation, really. It's all up to our individual soul journey.
So beautiful. So I just want to be mindful of the time. This was so exciting. Thank you guys so much for your willingness to serve our community. I put
Thank
into
you.
the chat on the webinar how you can find all of our panelists' information to connect with them outside of the webinar. If you're viewing on YouTube, you can check out the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. Each one of these panelists they have their own episode on our podcast, and their contact information is in the liner notes of each episode. I'm so, so grateful for your willingness to serve the community here at IANDS. I think that we opened up a really important conversation, and I just really love this interaction today. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Pleasure. Thank you.